In our second installment of Cybersecurity Hot Seat. Today I have with us a guy who just exudes leadership, not only from a security perspective, but from a business and personal perspective as well. Someone I've come to grow a deep amount of respect for over the couple of years that I've worked with him, Kevin Hutchinson. And today, Kevin Hutchinson and I will be speaking about vCISO and what the value is to organizations and kind of how it started and where we see it going. So without further ado, Kevin, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with us today.
Oh, Paul, thank you. Thank you for the warm introduction. I've enjoyed working with you over the years and look forward to many to come.
Awesome. Same here. Same here. So really, the first question that I have, or first statement that I ask for you is to kind of give us a personal history of what brought you to this point in cybersecurity. You have a really interesting story of how you got here, and would love for our guests to learn a little bit more about that.
Sure. Not one that likes to talk about myself, but I'll give you my little elevator speech. So I spent 6 years in the military, got my foundational leadership there. And after I got out of the military, wasn't sure what direction I wanted to pursue. Loved technology when I was in high school, so went back to that and really started at a help desk. Got my feet wet working at a help desk, and I've worked my way up to my present role as Vice President of Cybersecurity Services. Done everything in between. I've done network design, software development, server engineering, run IT shops, been a consultant. So I've run that gamut in the IT space. After 27 years, a lot of it in leadership, there's not much I haven't seen.
Yeah, I think that's great. As we segue into the topic of our conversation, it's one of the things that I love about working here is all of our services people on the IGI side have real world experience, and there's really something to be said about that. You can read all the books you want and pass all the exams or certifications that you want, but until you're really in the trenches, until you're able to identify how people will react or not react to different situations and to be able to manage that, I think is a real great trait that you and the rest of the team have here. So thank you for sharing that. So CISO, let's start before we deal with the V or CISO team as a service or anything like that. Let's start with the actual title of CISO. And in your 27 years of experience and up until now, and the interactions you've had with other organizations and business, how would you define what a CISO is?
Well, CISO is really a relatively new term. It didn't exist 10 years ago. We didn't have the perceived issues of security that we do today. Hackers, malware, viruses, that's all brought about the need for the role of a CISO, and that's Chief Information Security Officer. Not necessarily part of the C-suite, but definitely connected to the C-suite. And in most organizations, that's going to be the person who's responsible for the overarching security posture for an organization, making sure they're following best practices for security, that they have a culture of cybersecurity. People are getting trained, that systems are being tested and protected.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because, I think a lot back to 9/11 and the positions that didn't exist prior to 9/11 and how they were they're derived from that tragic event, and now it's mainstay in corporate America, schools, state and local government, things like that.
Sure.
I kind of see it the same way as with a CISO or a security manager or things like that, or ISMS if you want to call it that as well, where we've reached this dangerous point in our virtual world where there is a need for everyday personnel and executive leadership to bring some insight and guidance around cybersecurity. And it's more. It's funny to think that I started about 14 years in cybersecurity, and you're absolutely right. A decade ago, maybe large organizations, Fortune 10, Fortune 500 companies had them, but your regular mid-level enterprise, it was the IT manager's job to handle it, or the network engineer in some cases. So it's interesting to see how it unfolded. One of the things, and if you read, any sort of periodical that pertains to cybersecurity or risk or compliance, you're starting to see where the industry is suffering greatly from the fact of not being able to hire a chief information security officer. It's becoming very difficult. You go on LinkedIn, you'll see a ton of recruiters that are recruiting, tirelessly for these positions, and they can't fill them. What are some things that you think that are attributed to that, and that are causing the talent pool and the talent shortage for chief information security officers?
Well, the first thing is there's a shortage. There's a great need for people that have the skills, that have the experience, that have the certifications to take on that CISO role. I think the last time I looked, there are 4 jobs available for every CISO out in the market. So that gives the employee, or the potential employee, the candidate, a lot of opportunity to pick and choose where they want to work and find that right environment. A lot of organizations, there's high turnover in CISO, and I think it's predominantly due to 2 factors. One, they don't have complete buy-in from senior management, right? They don't have complete buy-in from the C-suite with the understanding of what the spend really is to protect an organization. The other thing is, a lot of organizations look to point that finger of blame if there is an incident, or if there's that dreaded B word, breach. The first person they want to point to is the CISO. Well, it happened because it's the CISO's fault. Well, forget that an employee got phished, and an employee allowed an incident to occur that led to that B word. So I think a lot of that is misguided. And until that culture changes, we're going to continue to see that. And I guess third is a lot of burnout. CISOs end up being on call, get pulled into things that they really shouldn't get pulled into, and get mired down into a lot of the politics, trying to fight to get those dollars to secure the environment. And they just get burnt out and say, you know what, there's 3 other jobs out there for me. I'm going to go look at one of those.
Yeah, I think a couple of things you pointed in on there that I wanted to highlight was the buy-in from an organization. It truly is, an organization knows that they have a problem. I don't know of any board that's meeting right now that's not freaking out about risk or compliance for their organization, but they don't equate the dollars to it, because there's no, it doesn't put you in the black. You can buy services, solutions, you can spend hundreds of millions of dollars if you're a large organization on cybersecurity, but when the CFO gets the bill, it's not that they can equate that and map it one-to-one to saying, okay, our organization is now in the black. Now, the tragic thing about it is that if an incident or the B word occurs, you go into the red pretty quickly, pretty fast, and there's really no stopping that train from going there. So it's really
Exactly.
It's a difficult kind of way of balancing it out. And then, the burnout is real. I read a very interesting article that one of my CISO friends posted of the substance abuse problems that CISOs have. They are under so much duress all day, every day. I think one of the things that has helped me to converse with CISOs in a business development role is that I know CISOs, and I know, they do sleep at night. Don't use that phrase, what keeps you up at night, what allows you. They end up falling asleep at some point, but every time that phone rings, anytime before 5 a.m., it's just sheer panic, because they don't know what has gone on and what has happened. And, some CISOs, unfortunately, and, I wish them the best, they turn to substances to kind of help them along the way. I think the article that it said, I think it was one of the top 5 professions where they're seeing people entering rehab and quitting their job and really not, following through. They're following through in their job, but they can no longer continue or function in that realm because of the high level of stress that's there. And I think that when you're talking to someone in that position, you talk to them with that concern, of saying, hey, how can I help make your life a little bit more stressful with the goods and services that I have here, and not just slamming stuff out and throwing stuff out, which our community, to a man and a woman, we struggle with. We got to do a better job of it. So we have a shortage. That's a problem. And the fact that we have this shortage leads to other ways where the shortage gap can be closed. And a lot of folks are now talking about, a CISO virtual team or virtual CISO, and leaning on security experts to help come in from the outside and stem the tide of attrition or filling gaps where they just can't hire people. So, what can outsourcing your cybersecurity team or functionalities, maybe fractionally or fully, what can that bring to an organization?
Wow, there's so much value that a fractional or virtual CISO can bring to an organization. It's a value add proposition. So if you look at the industry numbers, you're talking about $225,000 a year for salary for a CISO, and that's going to go up or down depending upon your metropolitan area. You add in benefits and everything else, you're looking at a total compensation package, $275,000, $300,000. That's a big chunk that a lot of companies can't afford. They just can't afford that full-time person. So at IGI, we can bring that fractional service to you, still have the same expertise. You look at some of the people on our team, we've served in that CISO role. We've been through organizations that have gone through audits where we've had to lock down those controls to get the companies to where they need to be, but not at that same dollar that full-time person would bring you. That headcount carries a lot of burden financially. We can bring more expertise because of the broad base of experience we have on our team and a wide variety of verticals at a fraction of that cost.
Yeah, and it's, and the other key piece I think that I've seen is, and you alluded to this earlier, is once you hire a CISO, the clock is kind of ticking for them to leave. We're looking at 18 to 24 month on average lifespan of a CISO till they get so utterly frustrated that they can't get budget, they can't get buy-in. They say, there are 4 other jobs that I can get right now, and I'll just, I'll do the round robin so I get paid and then keep the lights on at the house. The fact that you have this team virtually on hand to help you out can give some peace to them, saying, hey, they're not leaving, they're here. This team is here. They're going to get familiar with our organization. They're going to push initiatives along. They're going to be able to articulate to the board what it is that we need to do, and we don't have to worry about them leaving too. So that's a real good point that you have there. And so, Kevin, last question that I have here is, in your experience in managing this team and other teams, do you have a specific instance of where the CISO services that you provided or you had your team provide, where it really provided value to an organization?
Yeah, I won't name the customer, but they're in a manufacturing space, and they brought us in to help get them where they needed to be from a security standpoint, really establish a mature culture of cybersecurity, help them understand what their shortcomings are within their environment. And that's not just with CISO services, but most of it is. And really looking at the business holistically and not through just a single lens, understanding how the business operates, what are the cybersecurity risks across the organization. Well, because they had confidence in our ability, we were able to get them set up to a point where they almost had a significant event, but because we developed a program for them and a path with specific methodologies, they were able to stop that event from occurring and taking down a large portion of their enterprise or their entire enterprise. So it's trusting in the skills and the experience of the people here at IGI, understanding that we have your best interest at heart, and we want to see you grow your organization, because nobody wants to get that phone call in the middle of the night saying, hey, our systems are locked out due to ransomware. And by coming up with a foundational program that's able to mature over time and grow with an organization, we can help most organizations avoid those types of events.
Yeah, and so, you know, I think that's one of the most important things that I want those in the audience to understand, is that if you have a plan of attack to thwart a significant incident or a breach, we'll call it the B word again, but we'll call it a breach, the amount of money, obviously, because if you're hard down and you're unable to produce goods or services, or to help a healthcare organization, or to transact money as a bank, is massive. Also, the time piece is massive. And Jim mentioned this on his other call. And it was a really, really good comment, very, very poignant comment around the fact of, you know, when you're hard down and you've lost, you know, money, in the time that you lost, everything gets pushed aside. So this could have been a robust year to you know, redo your infrastructure, or to update servers, or to deploy a new OS for your organization. A cybersecurity event then removes all of that time, effort, money, the whole nine is gone, and now everything focuses on that. So you've lost on that. So the productivity of your organization is now in jeopardy, because you now have to switch all the resources to it. So there's a lot of relative time costs, a lot of relative money costs, but being planned and prepared and having a team to support you is definitely important. So that's a great point. Really, really good point of what you just said. Awesome, great. Good. So again, these are quick hits here for our people, you know, that are listening and watching these short clips from our Cybersecurity Hot Seat. And Kevin, this was great information. Thank you so much for talking to us today. And you know, hopefully we get another chance to talk soon. And thank you for all the hard work that you do.
Paul, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. You have a great day.
Take care. Bye-bye.